Hey, this is Professor Homa. Welcome to Toyota drop-down tutorial. And for this tutorial, we're going to review the Toyota.com website, and we're just going to try to recreate some of the methods used on the website. We're not going to recreate the entire website that Toyota's done, but we are going to recreate just the method where they've created a drop-down menu where if you go to the top of their screen, you can go to the category of vehicle, cars and minivan, and it brings down a drop-down menu which goes over top of the graphic underneath, and then once you choose a vehicle, it also brings down another drop-down menu which also contains more links. We're not going to do all the different links right now, but we are going to do the two drop-downs, the main drop-down menu and the sub-menu that comes from that. And if we have time, we'll do the second one here, but it's basically repeating the process. So we're going to recreate this in Flash, and I've already recreated a version in Flash by taking parts of this website and taking screenshots. So we're not going to do the whole website, but we are going to do the drop-down portion. I'll show you, right now I'll show you the SWF file. Let me minimize the website, but we'll keep it there in case we need to go back to it. This is in Flash Player is the SWF file, and what we're going to do is we're going to create it so that we roll over the cars and minivan, and we come down over one of the icons and it brings up this submenu. And same thing over here. So we're going to do that in Flash, and that will be enough work for us to do right now in ActionScript 2. So I'm going to close this up, or maybe I'll minimize this too in case we need to look at it again. And we're going to start work in Flash. This is Flash CS4, not a whole lot different than CS5 as far as what we're going to be doing. And you can still work in ActionScript 2 in CS5. So what we're going to do right now is we're just going to take a look at our layers in Flash and see what we're dealing with, and then we're going to start building first of all our drop down menu, and then we're going to create a button to make that drop down work. And we'll do this in different parts, so this may be 3 or 4 parts, this whole tutorial, by the time we're done. I don't want to do too much at one time. So first, looking at our layers over here, we can see that we have Toyota main, which is actually, if I turn the visibility off, that's just the main picture. So that picture contains everything that's here. There's no separate buttons, everything's just one flat picture. It's a PNG file. The roll-off layer, there's nothing on it right now. That's the layer we're going to use to do our roll-off. And what our roll-off is if I look at the Flash Player version, the roll-off is basically where we're going to roll off of this and make the menu go away. So we're going to have to create some way of making the menu go away after we make it come down. So that's what the roll-off is going to be for. The drop-down is our drop-down menu, the one that's going to come down with the pictures of the vehicles. The button is where we're going to make our buttons work that basically bring the menus down, and yeah, our roll-off will be on the roll-off menu. So this is where we'll make our buttons that make the menus come down, and they will be invisible. Whether we do an invisible button or we take a regular button and turn down the opacity, it'll work the same way. We also have an actions layer where we can put any frame actions into our movie, which we will do occasionally. So we're going to get started right now, just a little bit, and then we'll take a break and break this into part 2. But to get started right now, what I'm going to do first of all is click on my Flash interface so I can see everything and see all my palettes. And some of the elements that we're going to use are in the library right now. And the first thing we're going to do is bring down our drop-down menu, which actually is, if I go to my library, I save this as Toyota Cars Minivans Ping, and I saved it as a Ping file because Ping files can save with transparency. So for this type of file, we did need to have it transparent so that it has like a little tab sticking up. So you can see when I bring it out and I drag it onto the stage, first of all, I want to make sure I'm on my drop-down layer when I do this. So I'll go back to my library, and I'll just drag this out onto the stage, and I'll put my library away. And here you can see our graphic, and here you can see what I mean about a Ping file, that it will save with transparency. So I have this transparent area behind here that I saved from Photoshop. And I'm going to take this, and I'm just going to move it up, and I'm just going to use my arrow key and just kind of nudge it in place for now as best I can. It may not be perfect. And I'll move it down a little bit, and it looks pretty good. I could work with the opacity and things like that to get it perfect, but that should be good for now to start. So this is going to be a movie clip that we actually make appear and disappear. Right now it's not. Right now, if you look at your properties, it's just a bitmap. So we're going to take this bitmap and we're going to convert it into a movie clip. To do that, we could do it one of two ways. We could go Modify, Convert to Symbol, or if we right-click on this and we scroll down, there's also a Convert to Symbol from that menu too. So I'm going to click on Convert to Symbol. I'm going to make it a movie clip type. In the past they would call this behavior type, but it's called just type. So it's a movie clip, and I'm going to call it drop-down menu. And I could always change the name later. So I'm going to call it drop-down menu, and I'll hit OK. And now you can see it's called drop-down menu. And if I want to, this will help for later, and I might as well do it now. I could give this particular movie clip on the stage an instance name. So I'm going to call it drop-down. I'll call it drop-down menu. I'll give it the same name as its symbol name. So it's called drop-down menu, and I'm going to use that when we use our code, because that's how we're going to identify movie clips by their instance name. Not by their symbol name that we originally gave it, but by the name I put in right here. That's how we're going to identify it in the code, in our ActionScript code. Okay, so it has its instance name and it's a movie clip. Now what we have to do is build it as a movie clip. So the next step is double-clicking on this movie clip, which will take it into its own timeline. And now you can see the timeline looks different. I don't have the layers like I had in scene 1. If I needed to go back to scene 1, I could click here. That puts me back into scene 1. And I could double-click here to go back into my movie clip timeline. Now what I'm going to have here on this timeline, and eventually we may put another layer above here. So I can even just call this menu, because that's what we have here right now. But I'm going to make this a 2-framed movie clip. And to do that, I'm going to go to frame 2 on my timeline, and I'm going to use F6. F6 inserts a keyframe, because we're going to change it. It's going to change. On keyframe 1, it's going to be empty. On keyframe 2, it's going to have this content that we see right here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do an F6 and add a keyframe. So that means on frame 2 we're going to have content. On frame 1, like I said, it's going to be invisible or hidden. So the easiest way to make this invisible on the first keyframe is just to go on keyframe 1 and just hit my delete key. Normally in Flash, sometimes people try to delete keyframes using your delete key. You can't do that. But if you just hit delete, it'll delete all the content that's here. So as long as I have a keyframe on 2 that has this content, I could go back to 1 and I could hit my delete key, and I now have a movie clip that has 2 frames, nothing on the first frame, content on the second frame, and movie clips will loop by default. So if I go back to scene 1 and I go to Control Test Movie, I now am seeing that movie clip. That movie clip is on my stage and it's playing and it's going back and forth between frame 1 and 2. And right now it's flashing and giving me a headache, so I want to stop that. So I'm going to close this movie clip, or I'm going to close this SWF file, and note that when Flash, every time you test a movie in Flash, it will make, if you can ignore that flashing, it will make a SWF file in the same folder or same directory where you have your Flash file, your FLA file. So I'm going to close this up, and we need to stop that movie clip. Now one of the things to note here is once I converted that to a movie clip and I removed content on the first frame of that movie clip, I don't see the movie clip, because I'm only seeing the first frame, which is transparent, or there's nothing on the first frame of the movie clip. So sometimes it's a little hard to identify or find where that movie clip is. If I look in the middle here, I can see the little transformation point on the movie clip, and also that's why I want to make sure I put it on its own layer so I can identify it easier, because now when I go to that layer and I click on it, it will select that. And if I click again, I'm seeing the information, I'm seeing the instance name, and if I want to double click on it, that will take me into its timeline. So here I'm back in the movie clip, and what we want to do here is we want to stop this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a layer here and call it Actions. And you don't have to add Actions layer, but sometimes it just makes it easier to find your actions when you have multiple layers. And we're going to do something called a frame action. And what that means is when the playhead gets to that particular frame, it'll do what the code tells it to do. So I'm going to go on frame 1. Basically, we're going to tell it to stop. It's almost like pausing the movie at frame 1. So we're going to tell it to stop. And to do that, I'm going to go on frame 1, the Actions layer. I'm going to go to my Actions palette, which in classic mode is right down here, and it'll open up my palette. And I could type in the code, but where I'm going to start, just so you're familiar with the ActionScript palette, and this is ActionScript 2, I'm going to go into Global Functions, click once, go into Global Functions, click again, and go into Timeline Control, and I should see a stop action there. And the easy way to write this code is just to double click on this, and it'll write my code up there. And also what you'll see in the timeline is a little A up there, and that's indicating that there's a stop action on that frame. Also, please note that it says actions frame. That's another key that I'm actually putting an action on a frame and not on a button, because we will put actions on a button. And it's very easy to mistakenly put an action on a frame rather than a button. So in this case, we're just putting it on a frame. Once I'm done with this, I don't have to do anything else. I don't have to save anything. I could just close up my actions palette, and I'm going to go back to scene 1, and I'm going to test my movie. And now what I'll see is that I don't have a movie clip appearing. And now the next step we're going to have to do is we're going to have to make a button that we roll over, and it makes that drop menu come down, or that drop down menu come down. So that'll be our next step. I'm going to break here to end part 1 here. So again, just to review what we did so far is we made a drop down menu by bringing in a ping file, making it a 2-frame movie clip. That's what it looked like originally. And on the first frame we deleted content, and we also put a stop action so it wouldn't flash or so it wouldn't loop continuously. And now what we're going to have to do is make an invisible button over top of this Cars and Minivans that makes that menu come out.